Good to see everyone this evening. Hope you've had a pleasant afternoon, however you chose to use your time. It's good to see everyone out, several back in for the holidays, and of course, as always, good to see you back home again. You know, car manufacturers install warning lights and alarms, and frankly, they can really be annoying at times. I mean, have you ever been tempted to reach under the dash and just yank out some of the wires and those things? You know, the thing starts beeping and won't go off. Or the lights flashing, telling you your tire's low. I know it's low, but there's nowhere to air up a tire out here in the middle of nowhere, you know. So they can be annoying. But at the same time, we understand that these warning signs or sensors serve a purpose. They tell us that there is a problem. It may be something as minor as low air pressure. It may be telling you that your door is not quite shut. Or it could be something major. Your engine's about to blow up because it has no oil in it. So we understand these warning things serve a purpose there. And I would suggest to our young people, and I said this wasn't really planned to work out this way, but I'm glad so many of our college kids are back, and we have a lot of young people tonight, because this lesson is primarily geared toward them. But in the same way, in dating, they're indicating signs, they're warning signs, if you will, in the dating relationship that something is not right. Now, sometimes it might be a minor problem, and sometimes it's a major problem, something that really needs to be considered strongly. Certainly, you don't want to marry someone who is demonstrating behavior that more than likely is going to get worse with time. If it's a problem now in the dating time, in the courtship period, that problem is only going to increase, generally speaking. It's going to get worse with time. Of course, on the other hand, there's some healthy signs. There are positive signs that the person you are dating is potentially a keeper. And it goes without saying that dating is something that should take time over a period of months or even years. It's something not to rush into. If you expect to spend the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, the rest of your life together, you want to make sure that you're choosing the right person. And the purpose of the lesson tonight is not to talk about the permanency of marriage, but just let it be understood that marriage is a one-time proposition. It's till death do us part. You know, wives and husbands are not like cars. You go buy a car and you decide in 6 months, I don't like it. You know, this car just doesn't suit me. It's just not me. And so you go to the dealer and you trade it in. You can't do that with wives and husbands as much as some of you might like to. It doesn't work that way. And so again, I encourage young people, move slowly, choose carefully, because you're going to spend the rest of your life with this individual, and that individual that you marry is going to play a great part in helping you make it to heaven. The person you marry is going to play a great part in helping your children get to heaven. I want to begin this lesson by noticing 5 warning signs, if you will, things to look for in the dating relationship. And I think one of the first warning signs that so many times young people just ignore or look away from, and that's a lack of respect for others. Respect is important. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld made, and I'm not a big Jerry Seinfeld fan, but I thought he had a profound statement. He said, the person who is nice to you but not to the waiter is not a very nice person. And I think that's a warning sign that needs to be considered. The young person who does not show respect for his family, for your family, or for those he considers or perceives to be below him or inferior to him, is displaying not only arrogance, but is displaying a problem that's going to get greater as time progresses. You know, the Old Testament had a great deal to say about respect for parents, about respect for older people in general, but especially for parents. In Deuteronomy 27 and verse 16, it says, "Cursed be he that setteth light by." Now, we don't use that expression today, setteth light by. And so if you look in other translation, it says, "Cursed be he who dishonors his mother and father." The young man or the young woman who is disrespectful, who does not honor his parents, chances are is not going to honor you after you're married and been together for some time. And so young people, you need to watch out for this, because the person, he may be ever so nice, she may be ever so considerate now, but they're trying to make a good impression. They're trying to impress you. But look at the way they treat their own parents. Look at the way they treat others. And that's the good indication of how they're going to treat you as time progresses. Sadly, when they no longer feel the need to impress you and, they've already got your hand in marriage, you're committed to them, you're going to find that respect for you diminishes. You do something that angers them, they're going to be upset. They're going to treat you badly. So watch for those who do not have respect for others. But a second warning sign that needs to be considered or watched for, and that's irresponsibility with money. If the person you're dating constantly lives on a credit card, spending money they don't have to buy things they don't really need, and they can't pay their bills, they can't keep up, chances are that problem is going to become worse as they get older after you're married. Except when you get married, the problem is this. Now you're going to be legally liable in part for their financial obligations. And so many today, and this isn't just young people, but so many people today are like the prodigal son, who sometimes is referred to as the wasteful son of Luke chapter 15. Here was a young man. He had money. He went out. He spent it. He squandered it. And it wasn't just that he spent money, but it seems he squandered his money on things that were not, good things. Not things that a godly individual would engage in. Now, he obviously had a lot of friends, but what happened when the money ran out? Who took him in when he was broke? You don't find any of his friends who had been mooching off of him and spending money saying, hey, you can stay at my place. Why don't you move in? No, we find them slopping hogs. Just trying to scrimp by. Because when the money's gone, the friends are often gone. On the other hand, some are the other extreme. They're so cheap they can't enjoy the good things in life. They can't enjoy because they're so worried about spending money. Obviously, money is a tool to be used. It's a blessing that God has given us to be used not only for the necessities, food, clothing, and shelter, but at the same time, God intends us for us to enjoy things without going to extreme. And so the way they handle money, the way they view money, is it first in their life? Or is it simply a tool, something to be used to help ourselves, to help our family, to help others? Their view of money says a great deal about them. But a third problem, and this is one I think that is especially a problem today. Watch out for anger problems. We live in a society today that a lot of angry people. If you doubt it, just travel around 270 at rush hour. There's a lot of angry people out there. Some of these people, it's like they've got a chip on their shoulder and they just dare you to do something, to look at them cockeyed or maybe get a little close on their bumper or whatever. There's a lot of anger problems in our society today. Somebody gets ticked at their boss, they go in with a gun and they shoot everybody. They set fire to the building. It all goes back to anger. And an uncontrollable temper is a character trait that is really not desirable, because if they have anger problems when you are dating, I guarantee you that problem is going to be far worse once you get married. A preacher friend in Tennessee related something. There was a young lady in the congregation who married a non-Christian, and he discouraged her from marrying the boy. Her parents discouraged. He had a big L tattooed on his forehead. Dads, you know the kind I'm talking about. Loser. But she was in love, and I'm sorry, ladies, when girls are in love, they're dumber than a box of rocks. Oh, he's going to change. He's going to go to church with me. I'd like to sold this girl some swampland because she just swallowed his story hook, line, and sinker. Well, within a year, she comes back to my preacher friend, and she says, can I get a divorce? And he says, well, has your husband been unfaithful to you? And she said, well, not that I know of. And he said, you don't have biblical grounds for divorce. And she began to cry, and she said, he hits me sometimes. She said, and he uses terrible language with me. And he goes out and drinks with his friends, and he comes in drunk, and he's just ugly to me. And she said, I just don't think I can take it. And he called her by name, and he said, let me ask you something. When you were dating, did he drink? And she hung her head and said, well, yes, some, he drank. Well, when you were dating, did he curse you and use profanity and call you bad names? She said, well, sometimes when I would make him mad. And he said, well, did he ever hit you when you were dating? And she said, well, yeah, a few times, but not like this. And he called her by name and he said, you know, the time to have divorced him was before you married him. There are a lot of young people who need to divorce the person they're dating because of these traits and these qualities. The young man who will hit a girl when they're dating or after they're dating, number one, is not a man. And her daddy needs to take him out behind the woodshed. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but I have no use for a man who will hit a woman, no matter how obnoxious she may be. You don't hit a woman. And yet this is a problem. I hear from young ladies talking about, well, he hits me, and how many times they've been brainwashed with the idea, well, it's my fault, I made him mad. That doesn't excuse violence, either in the dating relationship or in the marriage relationship. Anger is a problem. And so young ladies especially, I've not heard of a lot of problems, girls beating up guys. Maybe that is a problem, I just don't know about it. But generally it's the guys that have the anger problem, and they take out that anger on the one that they supposedly love. Girls, you don't want to be in a relationship that involves domestic violence like this. And if you marry that individual and life really gets difficult, when problems arise, it's always going to be your fault. I'm thinking of a case where the young lady, she believed it was her fault. She said, it only hits me because I deserve it. And I said, no, nobody deserves to be beaten up. Nobody deserves a black eye, a bloody lip. It's an anger problem. And so this is something that needs to be watched. The Bible has a great deal to say about uncontrolled anger. In Proverbs 19:19, a man of great wrath shall suffer punishment. Proverbs 22:24 and 25, make no friendship with an angry man. And I think that would apply to a dating relationship. The person with an anger problem. Ecclesiastes 7:9, be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for angry resteth in the bosom of fools. Watch out for anger, brethren. Young people, and passive anger, perhaps in some respects, is even greater than the other anger that we're talking about. It's harder to detect, but yet it can be more damaging. This is the person who they don't explode, they don't hit you, they will pretend to go along, but they will undermine. They will go against. And you try to convince them to do so. Oh, yes, I'll do that. Oh, I'll do that. But they don't. They simply tell you what you want to hear. They avoid confrontation, but they will not change. But a fourth warning sign that I think young people need to watch out for. Someone who emphasizes, or maybe I should say overemphasizes, the physical aspect of the relationship. And again, this is primarily for the young ladies, but girls, the young man who does not respect your no is not concerned about you. He's not concerned about your principles. He's not concerned about what's good or right for you. And the young man who is concerned primarily for what you can do for him does not love you. I don't care what he says. He doesn't love you. He's using you. He's taking advantage of you, and he views you as an object rather than a person. And to all of our young people, I would remind you that all sexual activity outside of marriage is wrong. And we live in a society where people have tried to water that down. And, well, we didn't actually have sex. We didn't actually go all the way, to use the terminology. That is still sinful, beloved. And anybody who tries to convince you otherwise doesn't really love you. And so many times these physical activities are mistaken for love. And frankly, many young people today don't know the difference between lust and love. They marry for lust and soon realize that that's not a permanent basis for a relationship. God has decreed that the intimate physical pleasures of sex are to be enjoyed in the marriage relationship. It is designed to draw couples closer together. That intimacy was given by God for a purpose. And it's not to become a game. It's not to be a toy outside of marriage. Hebrews 13 and verse 4, marriage is honorable and all in the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. In Revelation 21 and verse 8, John says, but the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers, and the English Standard Version uses the word, they're sexually immoral. And sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And closely related to this, if the one that you're dating is overly concerned about your appearance, that's an indication that they don't really love you. They love your appearance. They love your looks. And oftentimes, they will criticize or belittle the way someone looks or the way they dress. And that person often develops an inferiority complex. And they become obsessed with how they look. I'm thinking about a couple I knew years ago. I don't even know if they're still married. His name was Jay and her name was Dawn. Jay was about as homely a guy as you'd ever want to meet. I mean, I felt like a knockout compared to this guy. He was tall and skinny. He had stringy hair that looked like it was perpetually dirty. He had lifetime acne. And yet he married a girl who was what we used to call a knockout. She was just beautiful. And I remember him saying in her presence, if she gains 20 pounds, she's out of here. And I kept waiting for him to chuckle. And somebody told me later he was serious. And I couldn't help but think, buddy, you're lucky to have her. You better be grateful even with 20 pounds more. But you see, he was obsessed with her appearance. And to him, she was a showpiece. She was something to brag about. Arm candy, to use the modern terminology. If someone is obsessed with your looks, and that's not to say that a husband should not be proud of his wife. He should not be proud of the way his wife looks. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. She's the greatest woman in the world to him. She ought to be. But that's different than being obsessed with gaining a few pounds or how they look all the time. But one final sign that you're in a bad relationship, if the person you're dating has no interest in spiritual matters, and I guess of all, this would have to be the most important. Are you dating someone who doesn't care about spiritual matters? Sometimes they may show just enough interest. They'll go to church with you. They'll make all kinds of promises. Yes, after we're married, we'll go to church together. After we're married, I'll be a Christian. And by the way, never tell the person you're dating, I can't marry you until you're baptized. That's a mistake. Because they may be baptized just to win your hand in marriage, and that's not a reason to obey the gospel. Young people, ask yourself, is the person I'm dating respect what is holy? Do they have a respect for spiritual values? Do they have a respect for God's Word? Are they willing to go to worship with me? Are they willing to study God's Word with me? Again, because if there's no interest in the dating period, chances are there's not going to be any interest later. If there's no commitment to spiritual values, and again, you want to marry someone who will help you get to heaven. You want to marry someone who will help your children get to heaven. Not someone who's constantly going to be working against you as you try to live the Christian life. As you look for a mate, find someone who possesses the qualities of Psalm 1, verses 1 and 2. David said, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night." That's the kind of person that you want to marry. And I'm sure there's some other warning signs and indications that maybe you're dating the wrong person. And I'm not aiming this at anybody in particular. It's just kind of a shotgun approach, throwing it out there and letting it fall where it may. But young people, I would strongly recommend that you listen to the advice of your parents when it comes to dating. For the simple reason, they've been around the block. They have a greater perspective. They have greater experience. I couldn't tell you the number of times that I've had young men or young women tell me, I wish I had listened to my parents before I got married. But it's too late now. Because they're in a relationship, a marriage relationship, that is not good. Because they wouldn't listen. It's never wrong to listen to godly Christian parents. Because they love you. They want you to be happy. They want you to marry the right person. And so listen to them. I'm not suggesting that parents should choose your mate or that their word should be the final say-so. But you know, when mom and dad say, he's not a good choice, there's probably a reason. Or she's not the right one. Ask them why. Try to look at it with an open mind. Save yourself heartache down the road. Again, there are other things that could be mentioned, but these are the 5 that I wanted to comment on tonight, and I hope that you'll think on these things. But we're going to close by extending the invitation of Christ. Tonight, if you're subject to the invitation, if you desire to become a child of God, you have the opportunity to come tonight, putting on your Lord in baptism, following your confession, repenting of your sins, and acknowledgement that He is the Son of God. Begin living the Christian life. Or perhaps you need to come back and be restored as a wayward Christian. You can do that as well. Whatever need there might be in your life, either to become a Christian or to be restored, you have the opportunity to do that tonight. Let me encourage you to come while we stand and while we sing.